Hey guys, Xlice here. 1.1 is finally here for Arknights Endfield, which means we are progressing to Qingbo Stockade. You got the new Copium War to farm, and Tangtang is now playable. While both she and Rossi are to release in 1.1, Rossi cannot be obtained early. So hopefully you haven't gone crazy to try and lose your 50-50 on Tangtang's banner for Rossi, because it is impossible. You can only lose to Build Yvonne and the other standard units. So let's take a look at Tangtang. If you're looking for a flexible, cryo-stacking main or sub-DPS who also has time-stop CC effect on her ultimate for crucial points of setup, she'll probably be someone you want to pick up. In this video, I'll provide you exactly what you need to know, how to play, how to build, how to team, how to Tangtang. I just want to mention, full disclaimer on this video, while I do have creator server access, this is actually my account on live server. The access that was provided was at the same time going live as the live servers, so we can't really record anything early. So for this video, my team doesn't have the time to make the production look really good. Just letting you guys know, this one's going to be more of like a cozy explained breakdown of what she does in simple, easy to understand terms. So let's get into it. Alright, so first taking a look at her, her main benefits are consistent cryo infliction and Artsus. She also has a little bit of SP generation as well on her battle skill, making her extra supportive. She's going to be one of the best sub-DPS for Yvonne or Last Right teams, but she can also be pretty flexible as a main DPS herself. And these two builds have different gearing setups, which we'll get to accommodate for the different stats that she wants for different use cases. So in terms of gameplay, her setup is pretty simple. She's always going to rotate her QTE into either her battle skill or her ultimate. QTE procs on any cryo infliction or Arts Burst, which is just 2 inflictions of any type stacked. So either 1 cryo, which is the first part, or 2 nature, heat, electro, or cryo as well. This is going to generate 1 whirlpool, which will show on her tooltip in combat, and it lasts for 30 seconds. This will transform into damage dealing water spouts from her skill or ultimate. She can hold 2 whirlpools at max. So then we're going to use battle skill. This one is going to generate 1 base water spout and convert all the whirlpools that we have on the field to water spouts at a 1-to-1 ratio. So 1 base and 2 whirlpools means that at maximum she can have 3 water spouts on field. She's going to gain SP and apply more Artsus per whirlpool, so the more the better. Her own skill tooltip will highlight when you have 2 whirlpools, indicating the optimal time to use it. When she has ult though, you're going to actually skip her battle skill and just directly use her ult. So the normal rotation is going to be QT once or twice into the skill. And then if the ult is available, you just go once or twice QTE into ultimate. Ultimate is going to summon a large time stop area that deals cryo damage before exploding and dealing extra damage. If you plunge attack early though, it'll do a bigger explosion damage and convert all whirlpools into water spouts that have the same multiplier as the skill, but deal extra damage. You can see this in her passive talent here. These water spouts are functionally the same as the skill, so you'll also get cryo infliction as well. This is why we're going to be saving our whirlpools. Both the skill and the ult use them. So if you skill first, it will use them and it wastes the whirlpools that your ult would have summoned. She has a passive called Riot Bringer that we just showed you. This gives the ultimate produced water spouts plus 60% damage. So optimally, we do want 2 whirlpools before we do the ultimate. And this is usually going to be used on like the big setup phases when you're preparing like the boss staggered, stuff like that. The other passive, Fam of Honor, is going to give team move speed and slows enemies around the whirlpools, which is pretty nice util for crowd control. And her basic is just standard stuff. If you play her on field, it won't do anything special. You will just be waiting for QTE openings into skill or ult. So, based off of my experience playing her, she's super chill and versatile. I like doing 1 QTE into a skill or ult for trash mob clearing, and then 2 QTE into ult for the big damage setup. And as a sub-DPS, she's generally really SP friendly, since you stack ult generation and just 2 QTE into ult most of the time. Her ult base is 90 energy, so it's a really comfortable ult amount for utility purposes. Now when it comes to talent priority, the big one is going to be the skill. This one contains Artsus, that's skills with level, so max the skill out first. All of her other abilities just have damage scaling by level, which is nice for her ultimate because it's her biggest source of damage, but you don't need more than that. While her QTE is her important setup ability, the level scaling and the damage it deals is not important. It's just the whirlpool generation, and this doesn't change as you level it up. So yeah, skill first, and this one is what you're going to take into mastery. All right, now let's take a look at her build. So attribute scaling is going to be agility and strength. And she deals all of her damage with her battle skill, so she wants battle skill damage. Now for her gear set, we have something new in 1.1. So as you guys can notice here, she's going to want the Bone Crusher set. But the default ones, which use the Sheer Knight components, these ones don't give her the main stat that she really wants. What she actually wants is she wants the new T2 ones. These are going to use the Copium components. So these ones you're going to get the recipe for as you do 1.1 story. You're going to get cryo damage bonus on the armor and gloves, and the battle skill damage, just this one, on the kits. For artificing, focus on agility on all the pieces and then get rest of the stats. For sub-DPS gear, we're going to go the super comfortable Eternal Sheer Knight gear pack. Let me pull it up really quick because I have a lot of units using it. But overall, as you guys can see, like everyone's using this setup. We're going to go max ultimate gain efficiency on the gloves and both of the kits. And then we're going to add an off piece on the body piece. This is going to be the new, let me show you really quick. So in the Type 50 Yinglong gear pack, there's actually a new piece here. This is with the new components. This is going to give agility and strength. It's going to get ultimate gain efficiency. So this is usually the off piece for the Eternal Sheer Knight. You're going to want to create this one. All right, now for her weapon. So she's got 3 options. She's got her signature. She's got the Battle Pass one, which I don't have right now. And then we also have the 5-star OBJ Velocitus. She does not scale with crit. So the guns that Yvonne uses, unfortunately, don't scale very well for her. Signature is going to be very nice for both main DPS and sub DPS builds. Has raw agility, raw attack, cryo damage, and both self-damage bonus and enemy arts damage taken. Battle Pass gun is the second best. It's called Home Longing. This one has standard agility, standard cryo damage, and attack percent gain. And then for those without a 6-star weapon, OBJ Velocitus is a really solid sub-DPS weapon with insane ult gain efficiency. In terms of strength scaling, this is what you can expect though. If you're on the main DPS Bone Crusher gear build, the signature is going to be better than the battle pass by about 15 to 20%. If you're on the sub DPS Sheer Knight ultimate gain efficiency build, the signature is only going to be better than the BP by about 5 to 10%. So do what you will with that information on how you want to build her. Now, a quick run through of potentials for any whales or lucky gamers out there. Most of you guys can skip this to the next section for teams in combat. That being said though, her potentials I kind of like. They're actually pretty well distributed here. So P1, QTE is going to gain 1.2x final damage, and the cooldown is going to decrease from 14 to 12 seconds. Battle skill gains increased SP recovery from 20 to 25 per whirlpool. This one is pretty good for a P1 for utility. Both main DPS and sub DPS benefit, as this shortens her specific rotation, also has slight SP increase to compensate for the faster rotation. P2 is 20 intellect and 10% cryo damage dealt. P3, battle skill gains 1.1x final damage, and the arts sus effect is increased by 5%. At rank 9, this is 8% on 3 water spouts, and 9% at mastery 1. So 5% is a pretty big deal. This is going to increase it to 13% at rank 9, 14% at mastery 1, and then maybe even 15 to 16% at mastery 2 to 3. Then we got P4. Ultimate is minus 15% cost from 90 down to around 77. This buffs both main and sub DPS again, increasing the frequency of ults in general and allowing you to play a bit more aggressive with them rather than holding them for a singular all-in every 40 seconds. So this is pretty nice. And then P5. Ultimate 1.15x final damage and passive Riotbringer buffed from plus 60% damage on water spouts to plus 140% damage. So overall, P1 to P5, one of the best potential scalings, I think. All of them are useful and contribute to a better rotation or more team damage in a visible way. Cryo enjoyers should like this one. All right, now on to team comps. So we're basically just taking our cryo team from Yvonne's guide and moving things around. In the Yvonne comp, we got Yvonne, Xlice, Xlesh, and Flex. In this particular team, usually Xlesh is going to be replaced by Tangtang, since Tangtang has minor SP recovery on battle skill. But Xlice is also okay to replace and you just keep Xlesh in. I prefer replacing Xlesh because Xlice is your sustain in this comp. The best flex in this particular comp is obviously Gilberta. The AoE from her and Tangtang is actually crazy juiced. And the full setup massively buffs Yvonne with Art Sus and Cryo Amp. Other comfortable options in the 4th slot include another Cryo like Last Rite, or characters like Fluorite, Ardelia, and maybe even like Perlica. For main DPS Tangtang, all you do is replace Yvonne in that team. So Tangtang, Xlice, Xlesh plus Flex. Nothing crazy to see here. Strongest Flex is still Gilberta, of course. Since this comp does not need to Giga Stack Cryo Infliction the same way Yvonne needed, the Flex slot performs better with just Ardelia or Gilberta. You're not going to want to run someone like Fluorite for this comp. Alright, so now let's run through 2 combat showcases that I prepared for her. I'm going to have a single target fight against level 90 Rodan and an AoE fight against Umbral Monument Agony. In these showcases, Tangtang is going to be running the standard Bone Crusher set with signature weapon, but in usual supported situations, especially with Yvonne, the Sheer Knight set for ult gain is optimal. Yvonne in these showcases is going to be P0. She does have signature weapon with a maxed out essence. She does also have M3 on her basic and her ultimate. Gear wise, she is relatively okay on Artifice. I'm kind of lazy about it. Not a big deal to me. So this makes her basically like 90 to 95% strength for an F2P that's fully invested and maxed out on everything. Remaining slots are going to be Azahi, of course. She's going to be supportive set, level 9 on skill and ult with the Sheer Knight set. And for these two 5-star characters, by the way, I still don't have their potentials used here. I'll just make it a little bit more relatable for you guys. Gilberta is going to be M1 on her ultimate for maximum art sus, alongside her signature weapon with a relatively mediocre essence, and then Sheer Knight set as well. So we basically have a maximum ult gain on everyone except for our main DPS. Alright, so now let's jump into the Rodan showcase. The new 1.1 quality of life, by the way, it gives you full ultimates when we start any fight. So we can initiate here with a hyper aggressive start that you guys can see at the bottom right. So we're going to be leading Zaihi's skill. 2 finishers here. Okay, second one's proc with Zaihi QTE into Tangtang QTE. And then when ready, we do Tangtang skill here. This will summon the water spouts and proc art sus, right? And then Yvonne skill, Gilberta QTE, finisher into Yvonne QTE, and then we full send 3 out of 4 of our ultimates. So Yvonne ult, Zaihi ult for amp, Gilberta ult for art sus. And then you guys notice here that we can actually hold Tangtang's ultimate. And we can do this because her skill previously already generated the water spouts, and they do the same thing. So we don't need to overlay them here. So from this point on, for phase 1, we just hold left click and abuse Yvonne's super armor, and we don't need to worry about being interrupted or anything. Alright, so first phase, really nice damage there, 339k. We instantly phase 1 it. Alright, so from now, you guys can see a couple things. So right after this happens, notice that because we ended with Gilberta's ult, we still have the nature infliction from there. So we're going to go ahead and throw Yvonne's skill here just to get that energy. So with this setup here and her QTE, you can see that she's about 1/4 of her ultimate bar ready. So now what we're going to do is during this setup phase, we're going to go for a 4 cryo infliction stack before Yvonne does her skill. Because 4 cryo infliction stack, with the way that Yvonne's skill works, will actually fully generate her energy from this point, alongside the extra energy from using generic battle skills. So we're going to Zaihi skill here, and we're just going to slowly set up. We do the 2 finishers into a Zaihi QTE, into Tangtang QTE, into Tangtang skill. This is always going to be 2 cryo infliction stacks. So after Tangtang skill goes here, boom. So you guys can see 2 out of 4 cryo infliction stacks there. Now we're going to wait again. So when we have SP, we're going to send Zaihi skill again and do the exact same thing, but with a little bit of a deviation. All right, so we have enough energy. Proc Zaihi skill. I'm going to do 2 finishers like normal. Okay, so you guys notice here, boom, 3rd stack into Tangtang QTE generates one Whirlpool. So you guys notice here that we're gonna actually initiate with Tangtang's ultimate. The reason why we can do this is because these will convert the water spouts for the extra damage from her passive. So this is at the 3rd stack, and remember that the ultimate that generates the water spouts here will apply cryo infliction in the same way. So what we do here, and then we jump, we plunge, so that we end her ult early, and this generates water spouts. Because you can see we have 3 stacks right now. There we have 4 cryo infliction stacks. So now we are full sending everything. So when we have the SP and when Yvonne's ready, we're gonna throw her skill here. Boom. Sorry, it's a little bit fast. You guys can see Yvonne's skill here. Throw that instantly. Boom. You guys can see instant ultimate. Look at the ultimate game, by the way. So we're about 1/3 here. Throw ult. Boom. So through the skill, and then boom, we're ready. All right, now we go. Yvonne ult, Zaihi ult, Gilberta ult is just ready, and full send. He's also staggered. Look at that. That is some juicy damage, bro. 450k, and then 90 plus 182k because he was solidified. So this total ultimate damage is 720k at P0. Remember, this is P0, M3 Yvonne with signature and max essence. Very, very juicy. Okay, I do want to show you guys one quick thing though. All right, I'm gonna fast forward a little bit because I'm gonna show you a slightly different rotation here, okay? So in this particular case, there is an alternative method that actually uses Tangtang's ult freeze. So instead, we're gonna do the same setup here, but this is playing a bit more safe. We're gonna be losing a little bit more of the damage though. Okay, so watch this. So we are 3 stacks, right? So we proc Tangtang's skill like normal here, because we need 4 crowd infliction stacks. Okay, so there we go. 4th crowd infliction, we throw Yvonne's bubble. Now we full send. So you guys notice I have all my ults here. We're going to set up the QTE, make sure that Yvonne gets her QTE off so we get the delayed solidification. Then we're gonna pop Yvonne ult, Xlice ult, Gilberta ult, and then wait a little bit and then pop Tangtang ult for that time stop. Alright, so he's still staggered, same thing. And now, obviously we don't need to here, but you can see the proof of concept with the time stop. And there it is. So with this setup, Tangtang herself is going to be doing less damage, but overall, you should be feeling safer because if the boss is not staggered, you can still time stop with Tangtang's ult. It'll buy you about 3 seconds to fully get off Yvonne's damage. A little bit of a safer play, but a little bit weaker overall in Team DPS. Still good though. All right, now for a quick AoE demonstration with Main-DPS Tangtang. Here we are going to use a Lesh to cover the flex slot for more AoE damage and SP generation. In this setup, it's pretty simple. We're not going to be min-maxing any crazy rotation. We're going to cycle Gilberta's skill and Xlice's skill into Tangtang QTE and her skill. We're not going to need to generate 2 whirlpools unless necessary. And the continuous CC makes the clear fairly straightforward, but it's on the slower side. So I'll play a little bit of it out. All right, so here, we want to make sure we collect them all, and then we have a Xlice's skill here. Do the 2 finishers like normal. And then QTs. Boom. 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 And the stacker bar's already down. Let's do some finishers. Obviously, we're way weaker than Yvonne. Yvonne would be blasting you guys. Alright, and then we're going to use her skill right here. Because we waited there a little bit. So you can abuse the timings on all this stuff. So I got a 2 whirlpool set up there. But yeah, overall, you guys can see, like, you're chilling, man. Xlice's got the sustain for you. We've got insane amounts of AoE. We can use our ultimates whenever we want, for the most part. Obviously, if you want to save it for a boss setup that's coming in the future, you can. But because we're on ultimate gain efficiency on everyone except for Tangtang, it's fairly easy to just use them off cooldown. Obviously, for Xlice's ult, we're going to save it for when Tano's doing something with their abilities. But yeah, this basically just repeats. As you guys can see, I'll show 1 ultimate here. This is a 2 whirlpool ultimate. We're amping it up now. And we're jumping and plunging so that we summon those water spouts. And there it is. Continuously CC them. But yeah, we can fast forward this at this point. If you guys want to see a little bit of the worm stuff. The worms take a while because they're pretty beefy. And Tangtang's AoE, we don't really have a true damage dealer on this comp. Alright, so here's the worms. A little bit of a showcase here, just to show you guys. We have 3 ultimates here. We're going to summon the Leshes. Right? We can use these ultimates. And then we're waiting for Tangtang to get her ultimate here. It's gonna be very soon. Stacker bars are almost dead. Tangtang's almost got ultimate. Keep on dodging with the worms when they have that yellow, when they're like glowing yellow and they're about to spit their balls. Alright, so here, boom, now we can set up. Xlice into Gilberta, and then Tangtang time freeze. Look at that. Super nice. And then we jump, summon the whirlpools, and continuously do a bunch of damage there. Overall, pretty good. We did about 70k AoE. Obviously, it's not a Yvonne single target, but it does the job, especially for trash mob clearing. But yeah, now we got this one left. We're just going to be beating it, basically. I take a face full of its yellow ball stuff. It is what it is. Just trying to clear it at this point. No method to the madness, just spamming abilities. Yeah, there it is. So I almost died because he got a lot of stacks. But yeah, overall, pretty solid. Pretty solid, man. All right, boys. So that's going to wrap things up for Tangtang. Personal thoughts. I think the premium Yvonne team that I showcased here, right here, is really strong. It does require 3 limited units, including Gilberta. And while Ardelia can replace her, Ardelia lacks the CC that Gilberta can provide in different situations. So this premium comp is probably the strongest overall roster right now, since it has massive single target damage with Yvonne, has massive AoE damage with Gilberta, Tangtang, and Yvonne's skill, which is really nice to synergize with this, and incredible amounts of CC from both of these two. The sustain is sufficient with Zaihi. Obviously, you would like something a little bit better, but her amp is like really necessary to multiply the damage on this whole team comp, despite her crown infliction being a little bit like a snail slow to set up. It's probably the only downside right now is the way that Zaihi plays. But overall, Tangtang is the staple cryo support and pairs ridiculously well with Gilberta if you have her. So this is probably the core duo. Yvonne is obviously nice to have and pairs even better. But if you're looking for it, I could see Yvonne getting replaced in the future with some crazy other DPS. Tangtang is a sub-DPS, so she's going to be in this flex slot, and she doesn't like go crazy as a main DPS. She still can work, but obviously, yeah. If you do have the disposable income, I'd suggest you pick up these 3 characters, then basically you don't have to worry about things for a while. This will make your life pretty easy. Also, a little bit of a extra note, by the way, as you guys can notice from the rotations. This is why I noticed that P1 is really valuable. In the setup with Yvonne, we're actually waiting for Tangtang's QTE before we can send the ultimate. So having this at -2 seconds and having the battle skill return 5 SP actually goes pretty hard here. But yeah, I'm not incentivizing you to go for it, but if you manage to get this from like your lucky pulls, it's pretty nice. But yeah, that's gonna wrap it up for this laid back comprehensive guide on Tangtang and a showcase for her. Let me know in the comments what you think of her. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more Enfield content, and thank you guys for watching. Take care.